Hi, it's Jan Beta, and I'm really sorry to tell you that this is going to be another Commodore 64 repair video. Yeah, this is kind of an emergency, so I have to do it. I'm sorry for so much Commodore 64 content lately, but yeah, as you probably know, this is my favorite system to work on. So here's the story of this particular one in a nutshell. There was a flood in Germany because of very severe rainfall in the south and the southwest, primarily of Germany. And many people lost their homes, many basements were flooded, there were even some people who died, and that's very uncommon here in Germany. Usually the weather is rather boring. There are not many natural disasters going on, so that was kind of a shock for the whole community here in Germany, and especially the people who are affected. That was rather disturbing. I am way up in the north, so I wasn't affected at all by the floodings, but many people were, and yeah, I hope if anybody is listening or watching this who was affected, I hope everything is going to be alright with you and things are going to look better soon. Yeah, I got contacted by one person who was kind of mildly affected, but it was still a complete disaster, obviously, because the whole basement of his house was flooded. He asked me to keep his name out of it, so I'm not going to mention the name, but yeah, I feel really sorry. And I got contacted by the person, and he had a whole collection of retro computers in the basement that was flooded. And I agreed to take some of those and try to refurbish them and make them work again, repair them, repair any issues that they have. Yeah, I'm going to see what I can do. So there's going to be a couple of videos with different systems that I'm going to try to refurbish that were affected by the flooding of this particular person's basement. So yeah. So here's the first specimen. As you can see, a Commodore 64C. And thankfully this had a dust cover on it, and I think the moisture, the water, dripped on it from the top mostly. But of course the whole thing was flooded, so maybe there's some damage inside. I don't know yet, I haven't taken any further looks at this. The dust cover held off the most dirt. Of course this isn't clean water because it's running through some soil and through some parts of the house and into the basement. So this is all pretty crusty, chalky kind of dirt and very resilient. Not easy to rub off. But as you can see, the dust cover saved this particular one from the worst, I think. I'm, however, going to clean this up thoroughly and take a look inside and try to wash the electronics and then try to make this work again, or at least make it repairable again. We are going to see. So obviously I'm going to give the dust cover a good scrubbing, but first of all let's look at the system itself here. This has been well used before the flooding. It has some stickers on here, nice pink Commodore sticker, some computer, I don't know, sticker on the side, probably from some old magazine, I'm not sure. And it's one of the Commodore 64Cs, one of the early ones, judging by the keyboard, which is the one that has the passkey characters printed on the front of the keys here, as opposed to the later keyboards that had those printed on top together with the letters and numbers. So yeah, this seems to be an older Commodore 64C. And yeah, let's, without further ado, let's just take a look inside, I guess. There is some dirt I can see through the holes here, and it definitely has seen some moisture inside there. So this seems to be, this has a date sticker on here. It seems to be from June 1986, if I'm not mistaken. And it had a reset switch, I think, added here. It's connected to the user port on the pins that reset the machine. Just a little push button here. And there, I don't know if it's visible on camera, but there is definitely some moisture that has accumulated here. Moisture is gone, but there's some dirt there. So we are going to open this up and have a look at the mess that's probably inside. Okay, let's hope for the best and cross your fingers this is salvageable. I'm going to try my very best on this, but I have no idea what this looks like on the inside. 3 screws as usual for these older cases. There's also a variant that just clips together for these C64C cases, but this one is the old school case. And this one was made in Western Germany. In 1986, of course, Germany was still divided in the eastern part and the western part. So, should be able to take a look. Oh, and it has the metal shield, I can see that right away. Okay. Let's remove the keyboard. There's quite some rust on the shielding here. Doesn't look too bad, I guess. Okay, I removed the 2 screws holding the keyboard in place. Now I can get this off. This is pretty crusty as well. Yeah, doesn't look too bad actually. But of course, yeah, there's some rust spots on here and some dirt. We are going to have to wash the whole board, I guess. I'm just going to remove the top part here as well. And I'm going to remove the shielding. This actually doesn't look too bad because the shielding prevented, I think, prevented most of the water to run onto the circuit board. Yeah, it actually does look really clean underneath, except for the outer regions here. Okay, so the shielding is quite rusted, and in fact this keyboard standoff is kind of entangled and rusted in there, I think. Yeah, we have to give this a good scrubbing as well from both sides. Yeah, but the circuit board itself doesn't look half bad. It actually looks pretty clean, especially in the parts where the shielding was. And yeah, of course there's rust on all the metal parts, but it's just surface rust, I think. This one, maybe we have to take out the RF modulator. There's some rust underneath there, probably eating away at the circuit board. But all the chips kind of look okay. So this is a 250425 board revision. Basically a very late model of the long board Commodore 64s, as was to be expected for this vintage. I think they used both the 250425 and the 250466 ones in the initial run of the Commodore 64C with the keyboard that I've just shown. This version is a very good one, usually very stable and quite reliable, so I have high hopes. I'm not quite sure if this particular C64 worked before the flood, but at least we can try to make it work no matter what. There we go. Whoa, okay, so there's some more rust leaking out there. Okay, let's have a look at the back side of the board. There's a rusty spot where the water accumulated and also some rust on there. So I'm going to remove the bottom shielding. I have to bend these clips here to do that. I think it's soldered on one of the clips. But yeah, we are going to have to wash all these parts separately. That wasn't too bad. Okay, let's see if we can take the bottom shielding off in some kind of reasonable way. Yes, we can. Okay. Now's the big moment. I'm just going to take this away. This has the paper is a bit crumpled because of the moisture, but this looks rather good. There's only so much rust. This probably sucked up most of the water. Let's see how the circuit board looks from the backside. Ah! That's a pleasant surprise. It almost looks as good as new, except for some rusty spots on the perimeter here. But that's going to clean off pretty nicely, I guess. So I think what I want to do is, first of all, to remove this reset switch. I don't really need that for anything, and it's just getting in the way. And then I'm going to remove the socketed chips, which are in this case the VIC2 chip and the SID, which is actually a 6581R4, and yeah, this little 8701 timing chip. And I'm just going to clean the whole board in the sink, I think. In the sink, I think, with some dish soap. And I have quite high hopes that this is going to work and we're going to be able to save this. So what I'm going to do is to wash this, now that I have the chips removed that I could easily remove. Wash this whole thing, scrub it with a brush, and use some dish soap and some warm water, and hope to get rid of most of the crud that is on there. And yeah, of course I'm going to do the same with the case parts, but I'm more concerned with the PCB at this point, so yeah. And then after that, after the water, I'm going to use some isopropanol to wash away the water, because that evaporates faster. And that way we should have a pretty clean board in the end, hopefully. And hopefully get rid of the rust. Yeah, it seems to just be some surface rust, and we should be able to get rid of that pretty easily. So let's try our best. I'm just using some dish soap and a toothbrush and a larger brush. Yeah, that should have gotten rid of most of the dirt, of the surface rust as well. Now I'm just going to take some alcohol and thoroughly wash it and then let it dry. Smells good, at least. This just feels so wrong, but I guess it's the right thing to do. So I'm just going to leave this to dry by the window in the wind, but it looks really clean already. So we want to make sure that this is fully dried out before we even attempt to put power to this board, of course. But the alcohol really helps to get the water away from the board. And yeah, as you've seen, it evaporates pretty quickly. Now it's just a matter of letting the spots beneath the chips dry and things like that. There's hopefully some alcohol that went in there. Ideally you would use something like an ultrasonic cleaner for something like this, but I don't have any ultrasonic cleaner. And the ones that are this size to fit a whole circuit board from Commodore 64 inside are rather costly. So I kind of shied away from that until now. But I might consider getting one at some point because it's so useful for things like this. Yeah, while the circuit board dries, I just kind of want to have a look at the keyboard PCB, which shouldn't look too good. I think what I want to do is to remove all these screws and get the keyboard PCB out from here. I guess, yeah, I just want to take this whole thing apart, so get all the keycaps off. And of course I'm going to take the case part to the shower as well. So I'm just going to get my trusty keycap puller out. And I'm going to pull all the keys. And there's some rust on the springs as well, of course. And I guess the keys are going to be cleaned with water and alcohol maybe. And the springs are going to take a little bath in WD-40. I think that is the best way to do that. I'm just going to stop talking now and remove all the keycaps, like so. Yeah, and that indeed looks rather crusty, and it's difficult to tell which portion of the crust is because of the flooding and which portion is because of the previous owner not cleaning it. And as you can see, there are some stickers that I think at some point were attached to the keys, which have dot matrix printouts of some of the umlauts, the German letters like A, O, U, O, with little dots on top of them. And this is an SZ. It's a mix of an S and a Z or a Z. That's a particularly German letter. But we're going to get rid of these. I think they probably can't be salvaged, and they were probably for some kind of word processor that I don't even own. So these are just going to go into the trash. You see all the dust on there. We are going to take this fully apart and clean it thoroughly. Yeah, for that purpose I'm going to have to desolder these shift lock key contacts on here. And I'm going to have to remove all the small screws because the whole circuit board holds the plungers, the key plungers, in place. And we have to clean the circuit board anyway because it probably got a bit of moisture too. Now for the screws! All 3 million of them. Lift out. Dun dun dun! Okay, this doesn't look half bad. Bit of dirt. But this is going to wipe away easily. And the key plungers are in rather nice condition as well. I'm just going to remove all of those, I think, and clean the plastic parts separately. Yeah, this comes out like so. And now we have this plastic part to wash as well. So I'm just going to soak this in warm water with some soap and then scrub it afterwards and clean off the soap and let it dry. And hopefully that will get rid of most of the rust and crust. Now for this bit, the keyboard PCB, I'm just going to very carefully wipe this down with some alcohol and a microfiber cloth. And I think that should get rid of most of the dirt on here already. You want to be very, very careful with these carbon printed contacts, because you easily rub those off. And I like to finish this off with some contact cleaner to just make sure to stop the corrosion and to clean the contacts a bit more even. Good as new, nearly. Now for the main attraction, the circuit board. It looks rather shiny after cleaning, and I'm pretty confident that I can get this back into working order. I am going to clean some bits with some IPA. There's some corroded bits on the backside, and I think I want to desolder the RF modulator can completely and clean that separately, and also clean the circuit board underneath. Quite a lot of work, even if it doesn't look like much. I'm cleaning the thermal compound off here because that's 1986 vintage. There we go. Yeah, and I think it definitely was a good idea to remove this, as you can see. So I'm going to clean up this area again with some IPA and see if I can get the rust off. And I want to take this apart as well. Oh, it's soldered shut. Oh. Hate it when that happens. We're going to get this off eventually. Oh, there we go. Phew. That was quite some effort. And it doesn't even look bad from the inside. Okay. So I'm just going to clean this as good as I can. The can. And see if that gets us somewhere. Shiny. I'm just going to try that on the top lid as well, but there's quite some severe rust stains on there and some dirt. But the important part is the bottom part, and I'm going to solder that back onto the board so that we can maybe try that. This looks really clean now. Okay, I'm connecting this up to my homemade power supply because I trust that a lot more than any other power supply, basically. We're just going to see if this blows up and probably get some voltages. Okay, cross your fingers. I'm just going to power this on, I guess. And we get a PAL signal. And we get a Commodore 64 startup screen. That was kind of easy. Okay, still good. While we got this running, let's get some voltages. And I tend to get the voltages from the user port. You can see two notches here. And on one of the notches there's our DC voltage, which should be, oh, that's the other one. That's our 5 volts DC, and that's totally all right. And on the other notch we should have our 9 volts AC, which is 10 volts, which is normal for my homemade power supply. These are the voltages directly from the power supply, more or less. And then we have these voltage regulators over here. One should output 12 volts DC, which is this one. That's 12 volts, and this one should output 5 volts on the rightmost leg if you're looking at the front of the regulator. Yeah, this is all fine and dandy. Okay, so the repair portion of this video is pretty much done, I guess. I'm however going to throw a diagnostic cartridge at this and see what that gives me. And the SID is fine too. At least as far as I can hear from this very rudimentary test. Yay, winner! We got a total winner here. That's resurrected. Of course, obviously, I'm going to have to do more testing on this and see if everything works properly. But at least we have a working or halfway working board now. Again, after cleaning it. I wouldn't have dared to turn this on while it had all that crud on it. But yeah, it seems like it survived the flood. Now for the metal parts, I think I'm just going to wipe them down with some alcohol. And then I'm going to try to remove some of the rust with some classic WD-40 at first. Maybe that even helps. It's not that deep into the metal yet. So yeah, I'm just going to wipe these off and then try some WD-40 and soak them a bit. And hopefully we're going to also get this part off, but yeah, I'm not too worried about that. If that stays on, it just stays on. It's probably rusted to the other part. So yeah, let's do that. Oh, I love the smell of WD-40 in the morning. Just going to let this soak for a while. And I'm also going to give these springs and metal parts from the keyboard a bit of WD-40 to clean them. Okay, I had this sitting here for a while. Let's see if this gets us anywhere. Not really. There's one other thing I want to try. I have no idea if that is a scientific approach or not. But I had some success with the method I'm going to try for cleaning chrome bicycle parts in the past. And it's a pretty odd one involving cola and aluminum. So I'm in the bathroom because this obviously might get a bit messy. I'm taking a bit of aluminum foil and some cola. This is the cheapest one I could find, so it's not really wasting anything good. The theory is that the phosphoric acid that is in every cola, think of this one too, yep, is good for rust removal. So let's try that. And somehow the aluminum foil helps with polishing. It works on some spots at least. Yeah, it kind of does work. Well, that's not bad actually. At least some of it is gone, and we're going to wash these parts thoroughly, I guess. And the springs I'm just going to wipe individually. Because there's quite some crust on them. And as you can see, yeah, there's some of that coming off here. That's good. Okay, that's not too bad actually. Some of these were really crusty, but I got most of it off, I think, with the WD-40. Remember that one of them is a bit taller than the others, and that's the one for the spacebar. All the others are the same. So I think we can try to reassemble the keyboard at this point. So for putting the keyboard back together, we have to put all the little plungers back into this. I think the first thing we want to do is to put the shift lock key back into position. Just going to see which way this goes. That fits in from the top side of this plastic assembly. So Now we put the circuit board back on. And yeah, our plungers should be secured now, at least halfway. So I'm going to quickly put some screws back in so they don't fall out. I'm also going to give this connector a good wipe down with some alcohol. I completely forgot about that. That was exposed to some water as well. And some contact cleaner into the contacts. There we go. Okay, time to put the keyboard back together. And the keys turned out pretty nicely actually. Some of them have a tiny bit of yellowing, especially the space bar. I might do some retro brighting on that at another time, but for now I'm just going to reassemble it as is. Most of the keys look quite pristine actually. I have another C64 setup here for reference, so we don't get any keycaps in the wrong positions, hopefully. This is going to take a while. Okay, it does look pretty shiny to me. Some yellowing, especially on the spacebar and some of the edges of the keys, but it's perfectly alright, I guess. Hope this works. Let's see what that says. Yep, I would say that's a completely working keyboard. Except for the shift lock key, which I forgot to solder the contacts back on. Yep. Yeah, and as for this paper inlay, I'm just going to leave it as is. It's not that bad. It's a bit crumpled. We could probably iron it, just wet it and iron it, but I don't think that's worth it. And I might give it a wipe down with some alcohol. Maybe that even straightens it out a bit. So let's put it all back together, shall we? And I'm going to add some new thermal paste to all these pads. Some of them, there's still quite a bit of rust, but most of it turned black. So I think we stopped the worst corrosion there, at least. Just a small dab on every one. And the little LED just clips into the top half of the case. So we're just going to run it somewhere here, because the LED is going to be on this side. And yeah, these parts turned out pretty nicely. All the paper stickers came off. The Commodore sticker in the side here stayed on, but I'm going to remove the residue here of these stickers. Clipping in the clips on the back side. Yeah, and it doesn't look half bad, I think. We just have to put these 3 screws in again. And we're done. And of course, you could do some future proofing and replace the electrolytic capacitors and things like that. I'm not going to do that in this video, maybe in another one. Let me know if you want to see that again. I did that a number of times now. Other than that, this should now be a fully working Commodore 64C that was in a flood and survived. Yeah, this C64 is officially saved. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, there's going to be more machines that have been affected by the flood. I wish the best for all of you who have been personally affected by the floodings or by some other climate thingy happening at the moment. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on the channel memberships page here on YouTube. And I hope to see you all again on this channel sometime. Thanks for watching. I'm Jan Beta. See you next time. Bye.